just two sexes, male and female, the impact that this has
among the
on the population, especially the transgender population?
I mean, that's a highly ill-informed and uninformed position for them to take. We're talking about biology, not politics. Or big
business involved in today's event.
Tons of medical literature that backs up the practice that we're doing through the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, the Endocrine Society. You look at the references that they follow. Of course, there's more research that needs to be done. But we're doing something that is scientifically based, and they're just making this up. If
and one of those orders sought to, in essence, threaten and coerce hospitals across the country to shut down care, including in places like New York and California and Illinois and Virginia, where people thought they were safe from the state-level bans.
That advocacy caught the attention of conservatives taking her to a small residence
psychiatric units for
a home for young people trying to get on their feet.
They were hospitalized for
hopefully
suicidal
like
event.
Show people that trans people are just people and we deserve a few more
going back
rights
to that
in this
state
country.
where they did not have access to gender-affirming hormonal therapy. I anticipate that if the executive order were to go
community
through,
effort in a country rolling back much. The Trump administration's rollback of trans rights has been swift, beginning on day one.
Essentially,
as of today,
and so that
it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders,
Minnesota meant just being able to walk down the street without fear.
And for the queer community at large.
Notice people's body language and the way they were looking at me or weren't looking at me. Really, it felt different. It did. Yeah, a cultural difference. It felt like it's a really good thing. We feel safer.
Other orders followed, defunding gender-affirming care for youth, banning trans people from serving in the military, even requiring federal staff to remove
taking the free anniversary in modern Britain, going back to the roots of pride.
Today, we are obviously living in a situation that is catastrophic. However, we also have to know that it is the Trump administration that is holding our entire medical system in every day, targeting our community that represents less than 1% for simply existing. And it is not just transgender youth. This is an order that goes up to 19 years old. I have been on the phone with people who deliberately waited through their entire adolescence until they were 18 years old so that they could access medical care, and then they had those appointments canceled on the way to the hospital on the week of those appointments. The devastation is staggering, and we are in federal court to make it clear that, first, the president does not have the authority to override Congress and decide how money that has been allocated by Congress, as the Constitution makes clear, can be taken away just because the president doesn't like how it's being used. And second, this action violates the individual constitutional rights of transgender adolescents and their families, as well as transgender 18-year-olds.
Quote, unconstitutionally usurp congressional authority by withholding lawfully appropriated federal funds. Today, the American Civil Liberties Union sued the Trump administration over the president's executive order targeting gender-affirming care for minors. The lawsuit says Trump's actions, quote, unconstitutionally usurp congressional authority by withholding lawfully appropriated federal funds and violate the rights of trans youth by, quote, depriving them of necessary medical care solely on the basis of their sex and transgender status. Our White House correspondent Laura Barone-Lopez has been covering this and joins us now. So Laura, just lay out the scope for us of the president's executive order and what's happened since it was signed.
Last week, President Trump signed an executive order targeting gender-affirming care for minors, and that action states that the federal government will not fund, sponsor, promote, assist, or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another. And we should note that that order defines child
it's so
as
dystopian.
anyone under
We're
the
living
age
the
of
Handmaid's
19,
Tale.
which includes legal
the
adults in many
inauguration
states.
speech, the executive orders, how has that left you feeling?
It's
left me feeling pretty scared and uncertain, and I didn't think it was going to happen so fast. I didn't think so much was going to happen so fast and it would be so bad.
Ollie doesn't want to have to move again, but if he starts to feel unsafe, he's keeping his options open.
Where are you looking? Mainly Canada, because it's so close, and we've heard that the protections are better for people like us, or at least not so hostile. So Canada is probably the top of the list.
This can't be real. This can't, right?
It still says a female on it, and I don't look at anything like a female. So
we're in the United States of America, the most powerful country in
to
the world.
hand over my passport to the border
And its
guards
citizens are looking at
is
asylum in
terrifying.
other countries.
And they're just going to question me down
Make it make
to the
sense.
bone. And
Elliot grew up in Wisconsin and Arkansas, but 12 years ago fell in love with a Canadian and started a family in London. But he misses his family back home.
My mom, she wants me to come desperately bad. And this was the year that I was supposed to be going, like, I was going to go for Thanksgiving, we were going to try to make it for Christmas, all of us. And she said, don't come. And that's hard. It's hard when my mom, who, you know, she watches the news, when she's like, don't come because it's not safe. That's really hard. Hi, Mom. How are you?
How are you?